Hi, I'm Tara. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be taking this ET2800 Epson EcoTank printer and turning it into a sublimation printer. So stay tuned. I'm going to go through some of the process as well as some of the products that you'll need and what exactly sublimation is. Now, first of all, I'll just address sublimation. Just in general, sublimation itself is a term that's kind of like a chemistry term that means to take a solid and turn it into a vapor or a gas and then back into a solid form without it becoming a liquid. That's the definition. I did a little research to find that out, and simply said, what you'll do is you'll take this sublimation product and you will put it onto a blank, which I will explain further, and it's going to actually infuse and become part of the fabric and the fibers. So right now I actually have an iron-on shirt, and this iron-on material, or heat transfer vinyl, also known as HTV, it is on the surface. I can feel it. It has texture. I also have a design on the back. I have like a glitter design and some different types of heat transfer iron-on material, and I can feel it. I can feel that texture. When you use Sublimation Ink and or Cricut infusible ink, it literally embeds itself into your fibers of your fabric where you don't have that textured feeling. It can't peel off, it won't peel off. It is embedded into the fibers of your shirt. So hopefully that is like a little basic explanation to help you. Now I also want to say that I was extremely reluctant to do sublimation. I am one that likes continuity and consistency, and trying new things isn't really something that I get excited about when it comes to technology. I got a little intimidated by the whole process, but once I did the research, I realized that it's really not that difficult. And as far as the machine itself, I did a lot of research and I watched a lot of reviews and informative videos right here on YouTube. And I ultimately chose this one because it is an EcoTank, which means it doesn't require cartridges. And cartridges, you can do sublimation. It just depends on the type of printer. If it is a converting printer, so it doesn't come sublimation, it's like this where it's meant to be an ink printer and just print on paper for like regular documents. If you're using that type of printer that's not an actual sublimation printer, then you might have to purchase things to make the cartridges read properly to be able to use it. And I like things as simple as possible, so I did not want to even consider an inkjet printer that required cartridges. So that's why I decided with an EcoTank. And then once I decided on an EcoTank, I also did further research on to which one would be the best. And of course, I want something that's got quality. It's going to be able to perform with good results and also be in a lower price point. I would be willing to pay more for something if it's worth it and beneficial. For me, the holdback on the ET2800 model is the size of document or paper that you can use, which then in turn makes the sublimation design that you can print out smaller than if you were to get a larger size sublimation or converted printer that you can print out larger images. And I'm okay with what I chose. However, if you want something that's going to be able to print a bigger than a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, then you're going to want to do some research like I did and find the one that's going to work best for the size that you need it for. Now, I do want to note also that it's not just the printer itself, it's also the design platform that you're printing from that will also give you a little hiccup as to what that platform will allow you to print out as well. So just note that when you do research for the printer, also take into consideration what program you think you'll be designing from and what the size of images that you actually are able to create within that program. So with that said, I want to kind of touch base a little bit on that. So what you're going to need for sublimation products are Sublimation Ink, which I have the Hiipoo brand here, as well as some type of sublimation paper. I also have the Hiipoo brand here as well. You're going to need a sublimation printer or a converted printer, which is what we're doing today. Now, a sublimation printer is one that I know for sure is a sublimation printer is a Sawgrass. And Sawgrass are printers that are created, built, made, designed, and manufactured specifically for sublimation, and they come with, or they're meant to be used with, sublimation ink. Where when we do this converted version, you're buying a regular printer and then you're putting sublimation ink into it to make it become sublimation ready and available. I also want to make a point of noting that if you want to invest in a sublimation printer that comes sublimation ready like a Sawgrass, they tend to be a bit on the higher price end, which a lot of times I'm willing to pay for quality. The thing that made me reluctant with the Sawgrass is the cost of the sublimation ink to refill it. So that was one reason why I personally decided not to go with the Sawgrass. However, I will try and link a couple different options of printers, including the one that I'm using here, as well as some of the products that you'll need to do sublimation. Another thing that you're going to need when doing sublimation, other than this special sublimation ink, a converted sublimation printer, and the sublimation paper, are sublimation blanks as well as a heat press. And you can use an Easy Press from Cricut to sublimate. The temperatures of Easy Press 2 and 3 and on up get to a heat that's high enough for sublimation. I do believe that the original Easy Press may not get to the heat that is required for sublimating. So if you have an Easy Press 2 model or above, then you should be good. And then also, of course, the just general heat press machines that you can get that reach at least a temperature of 400 degrees. So I just want to take a second and show you just a few different blanks. Now, blanks basically are surfaces that you can infuse sublimation ink into. And not everything's going to work for you. I'll tell you a couple things that won't. 100% cotton, mostly cotton, or anything that has very minimal polyester. Polyester, when you're doing material, is important. So the higher polyester count, the better your product is going to sublimate. Now, I have a couple different infusible ink blanks from Cricut. Cricut's infusible ink is the same idea as sublimation ink, where it's a solid that turns into a vapor and then back into a solid that completely infuses to the fibers or surface that you are infusing or sublimating your project into. And so Cricut's sublimation blanks are actually 100% polyester, so they're great for sublimating on. I have a little tote right here as an example, And then there's a special coating on the ceramic mugs that Cricut makes for their infusible ink that is also sublimatable. And they're Cricut ceramic and other different types of infusible ink products that are compatible with their infusible ink will also be sublimatable. They have a coating on top of them that makes them sublimation or infusible ink compatible blanks. As well as you can go to any store, including the dollar store. I picked up these women's socks from the Dollar Tree, and they are 97% polyester. So I will be able to use my sublimation ink or infusible ink from Cricut and create a design and place it on to these socks where it's going to actually infuse into the fibers. Another type of blank that I think is super cute, just going to unzip my little package here, are puzzles. And they cannot be just any type of puzzle blank. They have to be sublimation blank where they have a special coating on them. And as I said earlier, I will try and link some of these items in the description. But when you are searching on Amazon or other platforms, make sure that it says sublimation and/or infusible ink compatible blank. So just a quick run through. We need sublimation blanks. We need sublimation paper. We need to convert a printer into sublimation ink, and sublimation ink needs to be used, and you will need a heat press to be able to do sublimation. The thing is, when you start with a printer that is not sublimation ready, like a Sawgrass, and you're like, today I'm going to take a regular ET2800, you are going to want to get one that is brand new. You don't want to have one that already has ink inside of it from a regular printer. There are ways to do it and work around it. I just personally wouldn't recommend it. I would suggest, and if you want to have wonderful results and have great products, I would just get a new machine that has never seen any type of ink at all, and we are going to add this special sublimation ink today. Okay, so we are going to set this up, and I want to start off by saying that if you came here to set up with me today, make sure that you do not plug in your machine until you have filled it up with the sublimation ink. Make sure that whatever type of printer that you have chosen to convert into a sublimation printer, make sure that you take that ink that comes with it, that is normal regular ink to just print out like typed documents, set that aside and do not get it mixed up with this. Once this becomes a sublimation printer, you're going to want to keep it a sublimation printer. That ink that comes with it, you may be able to use in a regular printer or donate it to somebody that has a regular EcoTank printer that could use it. But make sure that you set that aside and don't get it mixed up with your sublimation ink. So we are going to go ahead and get started with getting this set up. And I hope that I've done a thorough job in giving you some basics about sublimation and what it's all about. Now let's get started in getting this set up. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the sublimation ink in. I do not want to plug my machine in and set it up with or connect it to my computer until I have my sublimation ink in this, because one of the first things that it's going to do, like any printer that you get, is it's going to want me to set it up and make sure that the colors are coming out nicely and kind of do a product alignment and print out. So we want to make sure that we have it all ready to go with our sublimation ink before we get it plugged in and have to do the whole run through of the machine. And this particular sublimation ink that I purchased is not requiring syringes. The one that I purchased will actually fit almost like a key into each color and lock in. You don't have to do any squeezing. You will simply just put it in the top and the ink will go in. You don't want to squeeze it. So if you get this kind, make sure that you note that and just take your time, follow along with the process so that you don't have any mess. Now, if you did get the kind that requires syringes, it's the same kind of ordeal, except you're going to have to take your time with each ink and use the syringe to get the color out and then inject each of the colors into the printer. And I'm sure there's other tutorials out there that will help you along if you have the syringe kind and you get a little lost. So today my ink is actually like this. So we've got all of our colors that we need: black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. And all those 4 colors can create a ton of projects. Okay, so I'm going to open my EcoTank ET2800 and just show you inside. You can see the black, yellow, magenta, and cyan. And these are where we're going to flip up and we're going to place our ink in here. And first of all, I am provided in the box with a pair of gloves, and I'm going to make use of these because I don't want to get ink into my skin, and you will not either. So let's go ahead and throw these on just in case. So I'm just going to open up my inks and get them out and ready. Okay, so first of all, we want the cyan, which I have the Cyan Sublimation Ink. And so simply what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncap this. I'm sorry, but my hands are a little noisy with this plastic gloves on. So I'm going to unscrew the cap, and then I'm going to keep an eye on the tank fill lines down here. And this is a no spill and no leak, so it actually has to be pressed down. See if the ink starts to fill up. Okay, my cyan is up to the fill line, so I'm just gonna pop it off real quick. And not even a drip came out when I pulled it off, so that's great. And then you're just gonna flip that top down and move on to the next one. And it does take just a little minute for the ink to kind of flow down in there. So give it time, don't rush the process, and you're gonna be happy with the results. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and continue to work through each color. And now, perfect, no spilling, no drips. So when you're ordering sublimation ink, I highly recommend you getting the kind that looks like this. And the top actually unscrews. So if you have a little bit left over, then you might be able to reuse it. And that's what the top looks like, and you just kind of stick that part into your printer. Okay, and then I'm just gonna flip that top down and press it closed, and we're gonna move on to yellow. It should begin to fill. I was having a bit of a trouble to get my yellow to go, and I kind of popped it off and on a couple times. I think maybe it just had like an air bubble kind of popped in there. I'm not sure, kind of holding it up. And I simply just tapped the back of the bottle and it is nicely flowing. So if you run into that, then just simply tap the back of the bottle. All right, I'm gonna pop it off. Okay, so hopefully that'll be helpful to anyone that needs it. And I'm gonna close that, and then we're gonna go to our last one, which is our black, which you can see that we kind of have a larger size. I've seen that usually when you set up your machine, that for whatever reason, it seems to take a lot of black ink to get it processed to begin with. So smart on Hiipoo for giving you a larger black infusible ink, as that one tends to run out quicker. It appears to be full, but there's a little bit of bubbles in there. And I also noticed that this one, it might have had some bubbles and it appeared like it was all the way up at the top for the cyan, but it was not. So I am going to pop the cyan one back on. Okay, and no mess. I didn't get any drips on me, and I didn't really see any drips up here either. So these bottles are great. I'm just gonna flip that closed, flip that top back up, and then I'm gonna go and set my machine up. So whatever type of model of regular printer that you purchased to turn into a sublimation printer, it should come with a guide that's going to tell you the order of how to get it set up. And in my case, I have the ET2800, so these are my instructions for doing so. So what it's going to do is it's going to tell me to fill the tanks. It's going to show me how to fill the tanks with the ink that comes with it. So make sure you do not accidentally use the ink that comes with it, but the ink process and type of ink that I had is very similar to the directions that it tells you here. And it tells you don't squeeze, you just simply want to push it in the machine. If you have any issues with the ink not coming out, just kind of tap the bottle a little bit or take it out and reinsert it. And then you're going to repeat the process all the way down until you get to where it's ready to power on, and that's where I'm at now. I just closed up my ink tank cover and I'm going to power my machine on. So I'm going to open up my paper. And again, I'm using this Hiipoo sublimation paper. Comes with 110 sheets, so that'd be great for quite a few projects. Okay, see the start here bundle, da 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 da. When that message comes up, it's telling me when the Epson Smart Panel message says to set up. When the message says start here, on the LCD screen, press and hold the button. Okay, so hold this button for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start initialize. Confirm that the ink tank is filled with ink. Okay, I hit OK. And now it's saying that it's going to take approximately 11 minutes for the ink to kind of assimilate and fill into the machine and all the crevices and cavities where it needs to. So I'll rejoin you once it's done with this 11-minute process. Okay, so it's done with the initial setting up, so I'm going to click OK. And it says align the print head for the best print quality. I'm going to adjust that. So first of all, it says that I can top off my ink as it is kind of sucked some of that up into the machine itself. So I'm going to top off my inks and then I'm going to throw my paper in. And I really like the Hiipoo brand because they sent me an email right after I purchased it telling me how to put it in my printer. This particular model says to put the printed side facing up, so that's what I'm going to do. And the Hiipoo brand has a watermark on it. So the watermark brand is not the printed side. If you do put the paper into your printer the wrong way, that watermark will actually infuse into your project. Okay, now I'm going to take my sublimation paper and I'm going to put it in the back of the machine and do some aligning. So I'm grabbing a few sheets. I'm not sure if you can tell, but the back side has a watermark. There's a little faint hippo watermark. You might just barely be able to see, like right here. My paper is watermark on the back, and then this is the printable side on the front. All right, let's go ahead and click confirm. Now there is a tray that you can pull out if you want it to catch your document. And I'm just gonna kind of leave that down so we can see what's going on. Okay, load paper. Okay, why is it saying invalid? Oh, let's press print. Okay, are there any missing segments? Oh, yes. Yes, there are. So it's saying, are there any missing segments? So like right in here, there's a couple little spots where there's no ink. So I clicked yes, there are missing segments. So we're gonna try to realign it. And then I'm gonna click print and see what happens. Okay, look at the printout and choose boxes with the least lines. On the next screen, select the number. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at this and see which one looks the most solid of print, and then I'm gonna select that number. So for each line, you're gonna have to go through and select which one has the least number of lines through it. So you wanna be looking for the most solid print. Okay, load. Okay, and print. Okay, it looks like it's ready to go. So you're gonna do this alignment first, and if you notice any spaces that have not printed, then you're going to be asked to do this alignment, and you're gonna have to go through each line, picking the most solid image. And then you're gonna have to go through this one where you're gonna want to look if there's an overlap, like a dark line in between the two, or if there's a little faint white line where there's a space in between the two. So you want to select the one where it looks like there isn't an overlap or a space. So that's going to be part of making sure that your colors and everything's going to print out to the best that this machine is capable of. And now it's ready for a project. Okay, so I decided that I'm going to make a puzzle, and this is the picture. I love it, from Disney from a few years back of my family. And I noticed that when I printed it out, there's a bunch of little lines in here, so I may have to do some adjusting of my actual printer. But I sized everything in Canva, and I thought that this was gonna fit perfectly on the puzzle, but it looks like there's gonna be like an outer white border. So I'm gonna try to center that. So it actually came on a piece of cardboard, so I'm gonna use that to sublimate on. And then I'm gonna put a piece of butcher paper over the top to protect my heat press. I'm gonna try 400 degrees for 60 seconds. and see how that goes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to make sure this does not smear or move around. So I'm going to use my heat resistant tape. This is not regular tape. This is Cricut brand heat resistant tape. And I am going to tape this down. And you know what? I take that back. Before I tape this down, I want to heat my surface. So I'm going to throw a little piece of butcher paper on it. I also want to do a little lint rolling. So let's do all the things. Okay, so I'm going to lint roll this to make sure that the surface is nice and clean, or as clean as possible. Okay, and then I'm going to get a piece of butcher paper and throw it down. Okay, so I'm going to throw this piece on and just do a couple seconds. So I'm going to count in my head 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to take it off. All right, so I'm going to try to center this as best possible as I can. So there's going to be a nice little white border around my puzzle because I didn't quite get it to fit perfectly. And as you can see, I'm actually just taping it right down to my mat. Taping it to the surface, to the little, taping it to the puzzle, and then right to the mat. And it's not really sticking, the tape isn't really sticking to the mat, but it is sticking to the puzzle. Okay. So I don't want that to smear, so once I set it down, I don't want it to move. I'm just kind of checking, it's a little crooked, I gotta fix it. I'm just eyeballing it, I think it looks a little better. Okay, and here we go. 60 seconds. Oh wait, I'll put my butcher paper down. And here we go. 60 seconds on 400 degrees. I have my heat press sideways, but that's not necessary. It's just because my cord is on the side here. So it's going to count down for me, and I will meet you back as soon as it's done. I made sure to turn my window on, to open my window, so you might hear some birds chirping in the background, and we're about done with the press. I'm going to lift it straight up. That really turned out nice. So even though, so there are some lines that I can see, I mean, because there's the puzzle pieces, it's not that big of a deal. But if this were to go on a shirt or something, I can see the lines where the printer still needs to get some editing done to it. And I wished I would have done a better job of lining this up where it would have fit all the way to the edges of the puzzle, because as you can see, there's a little bleed with the colors. But overall, I think this turned out pretty great. Well, I finished my first project, this cute little puzzle of my family at Disney from several years ago. And I guess one of the things that I would suggest is to take time to figure out your printer and the settings and do the adjusting as many times as you have to make sure the print quality is going to be the best, so that you're not wasting this sublimation ink. And also, I know I didn't mention it before, but when you print from a sublimation printer, it's not like a regular printer. When you print out your image, it's going to be very faded looking and really bland. This is after I've already sublimated, but it's really not going to be bright and vibrant until you actually sublimate it onto the surface that you're sublimating onto, whether it's a shirt, socks, or a puzzle in this case, or a mug, or whatever it might be. That brightness is going to come up once you actually put the heat to it, and it infuses into the surface. So don't forget that. That's a really important tip that maybe I didn't mention earlier. So I hope that you found benefit from this, and make sure that you click like if you did. I appreciate all my faithful subscribers. I really appreciate you, and please comment below if you have any questions about sublimation and getting started. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. And until then, make sure you check out another one of my videos.